us today, we have Dr. David K. Wilson, President of Morgan State University. Welcome, Dr. Wilson.
Hey, Ralph, thank you very much. It's a pleasure being with you.
Right. First and foremost, I want to congratulate you and your staff for being in the first cohort of Diverse's DOIT certification program. DOIT stands for Diverse Organizational Impact and Transformation. This was truly a testament to the great work that you all are doing at Morgan. If you weren't aware, we had over 300 schools start this process. And at the end of the day, only 3 institutions made the grade. So I bet you never thought in your wildest dreams that you would be called a 1%er.
You absolutely got that right. I never ever thought that I would be in that group.
But yes, you guys definitely are. So, but yeah, we definitely want to talk more about what you guys are doing just a little bit later here in the podcast. But what's been on my mind, because I have a couple of nieces and nephews at HBCUs, is this is Mother's Day weekend, and for a lot of HBCUs, this is graduation weekend. So, and I saw that this year your commencement speaker is civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump. So, in looking at what you guys are doing in DOIT, I saw that you guys do an excellent job of preparing your students for academic life on campus, as well as for their professional life after Morgan. So what message do you expect and or want Mr. Crump to deliver to your graduates?
Well, first of all, we are thrilled that Attorney Benjamin Crump will be our commencement speaker. We, of course, looked far and wide at who could deliver a message to our students that is timely, that will challenge them appropriately to take their Morgan education onto the world stage and to use it to make the world a better place. And of course, that kind of thinking landed us clearly in the camp of Attorney Benjamin Crump. And so I am very optimistic that he will speak truth to potential and will let the students know that they're in a moment, they are in a moment that they have to grasp, they have to own, and they have to make this moment their era.
Mm-hmm.
And that era is one where they are going to challenge the nonsense that is taking place in so many corners in our nation, that is about wiping them out of the history books, that is about really pretending like Black folks didn't exist, that
Right.
slavery didn't exist, that they don't matter. And so I am very optimistic that he is going to challenge them to think about their role in ensuring that this country will always be reflective of them, of their contributions that they want to make to it, that will honor the ancestors that came before them. And I think he will speak to what is happening with regard to so many young people, who look like them, who unfortunately lost their lives too early, much too early to violence, and how that is another aspect of our great system here in the United States that we need to perfect. So I know Mr. Crump will be inspiring and will be motivating to our graduates, their families, and all who will be in attendance on May 20th.
Thinking of myself, think of yourself as an undergrad. I know you went to Tuskegee. You talked about erasing our history. Tuskegee is entrenched in a lot of Black history. So as an undergrad student, do you remember who your commencement speaker was?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it was the president of the NAACP. Yes, Benjamin Hooks, the late Reverend Dr. Benjamin Hooks. And he challenged us the same way, because many people, don't remember their commencement speaker, but Tuskegee has been very, very intentional about who they bring back for commencement, just as Morgan has been. And so as such, if you were to survey, I would argue Morgan graduates going back 140 years, or even in this case, Tuskegee graduates, an overwhelming majority of them would not only remember who the speaker was, but could perhaps recite a phrase or two that he or she that got them to think about things perhaps a bit differently.
Well, ironically, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think I read that you were the commencement speaker last year at Tuskegee yourself. So, knowing what you guys are looking for, when you get a speaker to speak to your student, what was the hardest part for you in giving that speech?
Actually, it was an easy speech to give because I wanted to stay in a place called authenticity. I could not go back to my alma mater and give a speech that really did not reflect my true path out of abject poverty in rural Alabama that landed me on that campus, and that campus transformed me. And so it was an emotional homecoming for me, as it is, I'm sure, for alums of institutions that actually are invited back to give the commencement speech. So I was indeed honored, and even more honored that my alma mater saw the body of work that I had been about, and I am about, to be in alignment with what that institution has been about and is about, to be able to award me an honorary doctorate. That was one of the highlights of my career.
Yeah. You talked about your Alabama roots. So yes, you're originally from Alabama. What is the best thing you remember about your childhood there?
Oh, wow. So I'm the youngest of 10 children. Of course, first in my family to college, and I think a lot of people know that about me. But it was my family. I mean, my mom and my dad, they were so caring, so loving, but so strict. They didn't have favorites amongst the 10 children. Yeah, let me talk about this now. And all of us stayed within our lanes, and we didn't have very much to eat. We didn't have anything to wear. My mom practically made all of our clothes. But what we got from that was innovation. We learned from that was creativity. What we learned from all of that was simply, you take what you have and make what you need, which is a phrase right now that is deeply rooted in the Black community. And I think that is, kind of manifests itself in our thinking based on the way we see what our ancestors did. They knew they were discriminated against. They knew that they were being treated, if you will, like second-class citizens, but they refused to give in to that. They said, you know what? We are going to take whatever we have, and we're going to take what we need to feed our families. We're going to make what we need to quilt those crypts to keep them warm. And then children know we don't have the money to, in the vernacular, go uptown and buy you toys. But you know what? You're going to get out in that yard and you are going to make your own toys. And so I like to say to people that growing up the way that I did, and I go back and I look at the toys that we made, the roller packers and all of this stuff, from used syrup buckets where we would go outside and fill them with dirt and then take a clothes hanger and kind of run it through. And wow, we were very, very happy. We were the forerunner to the toy company. I think it's Mattel. And so it's those kind of loving memories, It was after or picking cotton all day, and we'll get home in the evening and have a little dinner or whatever it was. Sometimes it was black-eyed peas and cornbread.
Right.
We grow peanuts, we grow potatoes, and so it was sitting at home in the evening around the fireplace, with my father, my mother, and my other sisters and brothers, and we are baking sweet potatoes in the fireplace and parching peanuts, as my father would say. So I tell you, I'm hosting my family reunion here in Baltimore in July. I'm expecting about 120, 130 people or so. And these are festive occasions. I mean, we sit around and we reflect, for 3 days. And Sunday, this is some Thursday, so come Sunday, no one wants to leave because it is just a joy to be reminded of some of those incredible experiences that we had that at the end of the day made us who we are.
Yeah. Gosh, my father-in-law is from Alabama, and I could just change the names, but you guys basically have told the same story. And, I heard the same story from my father. And he grew up in Virginia. I've asked both of them, it always sounded like you guys are having a good time. I know my dad said, I just didn't know any better. But what would you say was your biggest fear as a child growing up?
Well, of course, unfortunately, it was what Attorney Crump has been fighting for, to make sure that law enforcement did the right thing by me.
Yeah.
And that I didn't end up stretched across the railroad track or being the recipient of some violence at the hands of individuals who had the power. And so, yeah, the fear was whether, as I would look around that whole area and I would hear of individuals being unfortunately killed, Jimmy Black and others in the Uniontown, Lowndes County area. Yeah, I think my father and my mother would basically be worried about us. I have 6 other brothers. They had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and I was the youngest, as I said. And I think there was a concern and a fear on their part that we would, be the victim of something that would be so unfortunate. So that was always the fear, if you will. And we kind of grew up on this plantation, sharecropping plantation. As I began to kind of grow and understand the world as a wider place, from primarily reading the pages of Look and Life magazine that were the little shotgun house that we lived in there, I would occasionally get the urge to challenge the white landowners and to let them know that, if you cut yourself, you bleed the same way that I do. And therefore, as a kid, I would say, after reading this article in Local Life magazine, why am I being treated? Why are they treating my parents with such disrespect? And I would almost kind of go up to a point where, the owners would come down and I would just be anxious to go up and just say to them, my father should not be calling you Mr. anything. You are the same age as him. And he should not be calling your son, who is 16, Mr. this.
Right.
Yeah, your son should be calling him Mr. Wilson. And I think my father and my mother knew that, I was kind of growing in understanding, and they were kind of hopeful that I would not cross that line because if I had, who knows what would have happened.
Right. They had to send you up north, right?
But not even at that point, because my family was still anchored there in Marengo, Perry County. We started the Great Migration, if you will, to in the early 1960s. And that in and of itself is just an incredible story. Practically half my family is in Connecticut now. And yeah, the way that happened was that my first cousin, she was as smart as a whip. She graduated from Perry County Training School at the time, #1 in her class, valedictorian, but of course she didn't have any money to go to college. And so there were wealthy white families in the North who would then send to the South for maids, nannies. And so they sent for her, and she went to Bloomfield, Connecticut, and started working for what was then the president of Hartford Federal Savings and Loans.
Wow. Okay.
Hartford National Bank, I'm sorry, in Hartford, Connecticut. And the family quickly realized that she was so bright that she should not be doing that work. And so within 3 months, the president arranged for her to go down to the bank and get an interview as a bank teller, and hired her on the spot. And she became the first Black bank teller in Hartford, Connecticut. And then she moved out, got her own place, and then started to send for the family members. And so that's how my sister, my brothers, nieces, nephews, cousins, right now that reside in Hartford and Bloomfield and Windsor, Connecticut. So going up north for me only is made itself possible, if you will, well into my high school years.
Right. All right. No, that's interesting. One of my favorite books I ever read was Up South, and it talks about the migration of Blacks in the South and where they went. And it's just interesting how people chose different places based upon where they were from. Just fascinating. So you mentioned that you are going to be hosting a family reunion this summer. So Alabama is known for its barbecue and soul food. So are you serving crab cakes or soul food?
Well, of course, it would not be a family reunion if you didn't have certain things on the menu. And of course, you have to have a barbecue ribs, even though, I don't eat much pork, but the family reunion is not about me. It's about the other 125 family members. So yeah, we'll have that. And then, of course, my brother, who has since retired from Connecticut and has moved back to Montgomery, Alabama, he comes prepared to fry all the catfish because, of course, when everything else is eaten, the last to be eaten at the picnic is the catfish, and they want it straight from the pot. And so, we'll have that. And then, of course, my responsibility as well is to go out into the city of Baltimore to one of the crab houses and to get 5-6 bushels of crabs, and we bring them back and we spread them all over picnic tables in the park, and mallets going, and it's really just a fun reunion. And I just can't wait. I often say to people that we have them every other year and we kind of move them around. This is the second time I've hosted it here in Baltimore. And when I leave that reunion, my blood pressure has decreased by at least 25 points.
Oh, wow. I believe it.
Yeah, it's such a...
I could talk about that all day. Get back to looking at the DOIT certification, as I was mentioning. We look at 4 pillars. Pillar 1 being institutional leadership and commitment. Pillar 2, curricular and co-curricular accountability. 3 is institutional climate, and 4, institutional representation. And when I looked at what was, you guys' grades at Morgan, what stood out to me across the pillars was your commitment to student success. And you talked about you grew up in Alabama in a large family and the first one to go to college. But what from that experience, your experience as a student, impacts what you do for your students today?
Well, first of all, we have an amazing team here at Morgan that is leading our effort on enhancing student success and well-being. I think I have the best vice president of enrollment management and student success in the country, with all due respect to all others. And what she has done with our provost, myself, our board, We have engaged our faculty that is so committed to student success here to make sure that they are understanding that if you really are committed to student success, it's not just about an office in an administrative building. The faculty must play a critical role in that, in understanding how to meet students where they are in so many different spaces, who are dripping in brilliance, who are dripping in intelligence. Many of them don't quite understand that. And then how do you work with them to pull all of that potential out of them so that they too can then march forward with confidence and with determination. And so I saw that as I came along as an undergraduate. I saw the way that so many professors took that personal interest in me. And noted journalist April Ryan, I think, summed it up best when she spoke here at commencement. And I would always kind of think this, but I never really verbalized it. She said, let me tell you about my experience at Morgan. And she said, my professors at Morgan loved me to success. And so I do think, without really, kind of going down a path where, people say, well, how can a university president talk about loving students? Well, it's a different kind of love. It's loving the potential. It's understanding the potential. It's putting students in a position where they come face to face with potential, and then they marry it. A part of my own undergraduate experience has landed me in a space where I don't have any kind of confusion about my role as president. It starts with the students. Starts with the students, because without the students, there is no university. Everything else is secondary. So that's our number one strategic priority in our strategic plan, Transformation Morgan 2030. It is to enhance student success and well-being. Now, if you look into that, there are some things that we think are absolutely critical in enabling students like the students we serve here at Morgan, which 70% of them are African American, and about 20% of them are first-generation college-going students. There are certain things that you have to embrace in order to ensure that those students are imbued with what they need in order to be competitive long-term. So one of them, of course, is, you really have to figure out a way where the students are understanding the world, that the world is much larger than the street they grew up on, is much larger than the neighborhood that brought them here, is much larger than the state from which they hail. And so we have a very robust study abroad program. One of the few HBCUs when I initiated this comprehensive study abroad program to have one. Only about 2 or 3 had them.
You're right.
Because of the way that I had experienced the world, and I've gone around the world, who knows, 4 or 5 times, I understood that that was very important in the maturation process of a person who would call him or herself college educated. And so that's embedded now in the way we kind of do this. And then the other is an opportunity for students to conduct their own research. Yes, we'd like to put them in the laboratory with professors and have them work with professors as undergraduates and helping the professors to move forward and to continue to conduct research that is important to the professor. But we were able to get over $40 million from NIH to create a different kind of program here. It was one that we were calling the entrepreneurial approach, where we as students as rising sophomores, okay, we're going to have an opportunity for you to go out here, form your own research question. And we want you to form a research question that you care about. And then through a competitive process, if that proposal is selected, we're going to provide you, and we said you got to get in a group of about 5 students, with funding to carry out that research. And then you have to present that to a national panel. So those are just 2 examples of how we are defining student success and embedding it with a high degree of intentionality into everything we do.
Gotcha.
And so as a result, that has landed us several national awards from various national associations, including diverse.
I was going to ask you about this later, but you kind of just brought it up. The research aspect of things, since you've been there, Morgan has gone from a research 3 institution to research 2. And my understanding, your goal is for you guys to become a research 1 institution. Why is that important, and how would it impact the school if you guys reach that level?
Yes. And so, of course, I was the first HBCU president to opine about the need for HBCUs to be on what I call the penthouse of research institutions in this country. I started this several years ago when I was a member of the HBCU advisory board under President Obama, and then written some editorials about it. And it was not just a need just to be there. There are about 145 of the R1 institutions in the nation now, but no HBCU is there. So we are R2, along with about 9 other HBCUs in the country. Our aspiration clearly is to be an R1, and we know where we are in the way Carnegie actually is classifying the institutions. And so this is not a pipe dream. We know exactly where we are. We know exactly what we need to do. And we know with some degree of certainty when we will get there. And certainly I expect that to happen during my presidency. But here's why this is important for Morgan. We are the state of Maryland's preeminent public urban research university. The state designated us as that in 2016. We're the only public comprehensive doctoral research university in the city of Baltimore. The other 2 public ones, they are not in Baltimore City. And so the future of Baltimore City is intertwined with Morgan's ascendancy to very high research status. So we are taking on the challenges that face urban areas like Baltimore City and other urban areas across the country. We're assembling the research faculty to dig deeply into those particular challenges, and then to come out with evidence-based solutions that we'll put before policymakers and others. So people are not stumbling trying to figure out how to solve the vexing problems that continue, if you will, to beset our urban and marginalized communities. And so with that, Morgan is not interested in being very high research just to lengthen the resumes of our faculty. We're not interested because we, with all due respect to our very good friend across town, Johns Hopkins, a very great partner of ours, I are, in partnership on so many research initiatives, but we don't want to be like Johns Hopkins. We want to be uniquely Morgan. And we want to tackle issues like equitable and responsible artificial intelligence machine learning, which we now have a nationally funded center here to do. That was just funded last year. We want to be that institution that is bringing to the table some strategies on how do we eliminate for good educational disparities that we are seeing in urban and marginalized communities. We have a national center that we are getting off the ground here July 1. That is being funded in perpetuity. We want to be that community that is looking at health equity. And why is it that COVID revealed all of these inequities in the Black community and in the urban community? Well, it revealed them because we haven't really come to grips with how to appropriately resource those communities in a way where these health gaps are closed. We want to be that institution looking at that. And we have a national center that has been funded to do that in perpetuity. And then urban violence. Morgan has to responsibly look at this issue. We know what the long-term solutions are. And our faculty hard at work looking at long-term solutions. But then what's the bridge solution to the interstate? And therefore, we have a center here, the Center on the Reduction of Violence. And so what I'm saying to you is we're raising our hands as high as the sky, saying in Baltimore City, we're not going anywhere.
Right, right.
We're going to be here for as long as America is here. And it's important for the state of Maryland to understand it, and the state has now understood that all too well. And so they're funding these research centers here to the tune now of about $18-20 million a year. We are recruiting 45 new tenure track faculty. We're giving them reduced teaching loads. We're giving them startup costs because we are serious about putting them in the position where they are bringing a perspective on these vexing challenges to the table that we, with all due respect, don't see coming from many other institutions with regularity. And that is really what is going to distinguish Morgan. Can't speak for any of those HBCUs, but when Morgan gets to the penthouse of research institutions in this country and join that of 140 plus, we're not going there to be like anybody who's already there. We're going there to be different. And we want those who are already there to take note of what makes us different. And then we can begin to form some true partnerships with them if many of them are also interested in transforming their institutions in a way where they too can begin to look at some of these challenges on an ongoing basis. So that's why we're there, because we see being there as being integral to the long-term vitality of the city in which we reside.
When it comes to diversity on campus, I read you said in Diverse that you all are trying to create a living laboratory. What does that mean, and how does it impact your students today and tomorrow?
Morgan has historically been known as an institution that serves a multi-ethnic, multiracial student population. And yes, our student population here is 70% African-American, but it's 30% other. And that 30% other is all over the book. X% that's white, X% that's Latinx. That's the largest growing student population we have right now, is the Latinx outside of the African-American population. And then our international population is about 10%. And so I have been on a couple of national panels with presidents of TWIs, and question of, well, what are you doing to diversify your institution? It's a great discussion. They go to the other presidents, one of those panels that I was on. And then when it came to me, it seems like I was set up to say, well, David, so you don't have to kind of worry about this because, you are kind of all Black or something like that, right?
Right.
And so I kind of listened to that, and here's the way I always respond to say, okay, so what I hear from the other institutions is that many of you are saying that we are, 65% white, down from whatever it was, maybe 10 years ago. But 35% of our students are non-white. That's what I'm hearing. And therefore, we are a very diverse institution. But Morgan is saying that 70% of our students are African-American and 30% of them are not. So why aren't we as diverse as you?
Right.
And so people have not thought about that. And that's kind of interesting in the country, that the way we think about diversity sometimes is, you're okay if, for example, you're not predominantly Black.
Right.
But if you're predominantly Black, how can you be diverse? And so that kind of thinking is a thinking that we don't embrace here at Morgan. So We have about 700 faculty members here. About 50% of them are indeed Black. 50% of them they represent all of the other boxes. I think about 20% of them are white, about 5-6% of them are Latinx, international. And so we have a truly diverse faculty, and Morgan traditionally has had a diverse faculty like that. My own undergraduate institution, Tuskegee, had a very diverse faculty. So you're going to find this kind of faculty diversity across quite a few of the HBCUs.
Yeah.
We also here believe in diversity with regard to leadership, and so I pay attention to gender diversity in leadership. I pay attention to other aspects of representation in terms of who is occupying the top positions at the institution. And so we have 10 academic deans at Morgan. Over, I think, 60% of them are women. And of the top 100 positions at Morgan, I think now 52% of them are held by women. And so if we look at our board of regents, a 15-member board of regents, I think about 35 or 40% of the board are women. And so that has led us to be recognized by the state of Maryland as, of course, also representing great diversity in terms of gender in leadership spaces. And so this is built into our DNA here at Morgan. And I don't see that changing at this institution going forward. It's a part of our core values. It's leadership, innovation, diversity, excellence, and respect, and integrity. And so we don't struggle with the way we define diversity. And we think the way that we define diversity at Morgan can also be a model for the nation.
Absolutely. When we got the DOIT results, and Morgan was on the list, we talked about that from a naysayer standpoint. We were expecting, people to say, well, any HBCU or other MSI, they are just inherently diverse. So of course they would get it, but that's not the case. So you answered the question I was going to ask you later on in your response there of how HBCUs and other MSIs are viewed as being, you're already diverse, so you don't have to do anything. The people that you got in those positions, the women, the people of different racial and ethnic backgrounds as students and faculty and staff, that obviously didn't just happen. You guys had to work to do that. So, again, we applaud you for that. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk to you a little bit about the relentless attack on DEI. And what do you think the impact will be on students in states where this anti-DEI legislation has been passed? And I just saw something, I think it was this morning, if I'm not mistaken, about students at Florida A&M, for example, are now on the edge of their seats about what's going to happen with their education, with the laws that have been passed at Florida.
I think we're at a really dangerous inflection point in so many corners in our nation with regard to what is happening to minimize the reflection of individuals, institutions that are non-white in the way we teach about everything in our country. And I think that is unfortunate because when you look at just how the United States actually came into existence, it came into existence on these principles that we're talking about. Um,
Mhm.
you had all these hands there that were responsible in one way or another for the nation that we see today. And so why would you simply want to sanitize that, to wipe that out? I think the motives are very sinister. But what I think some of the long-term impacts on this could be if this moment is not corrected, and if it then turns into an era, which I hope it does not,
Mhm.
is that number one, in no particular order, I'm just going to rattle some things off. I think we'll end up in this country where um, certain colleges in certain states will begin to lose enrollments significantly because students across the country will be making a decision as to whether they want to go to a place that is not going to be welcoming, that is not going to provide them with a college degree that um, that is that has breadth and depth and covers the things that are factual. Um, and so those institutions could very well see some reduction in their enrollments. Likewise, I think you could see some impact on the way faculty members select where to affiliate. If, for example, they are sensing that there's an erosion of academic freedom, they can't teach in their classrooms what academic freedom has allowed them to teach. They can't research what academic freedom historically has allowed them to research. Then, of course, why would they go there? And so, if this becomes an era, then you could have institutions that today could very well be viewed as flagship, but in 10 years, people could be asking the question, what in the world happened to the University of X? I
Mhm.
recall the time when it was one of the top 25 institutions in the nation, and right now it is just a shell of itself. And that's because people have made decisions with their feet. And I think that's unfortunate. I don't think we should be in an era where institutions are perhaps, in my own words, providing college experiences and college courses that I might call course light.
Mhm.
Um, and they are afraid then to uh, provide the kind of foundation in those courses that is really bringing into the way of thinking, diverse perspectives, historical facts. How can that be? How can it be that I could take a course at an institution in American history, but you're not going to teach me about slavery? You're not going to teach me
Right.
about Nat Turner. You're not going to teach me about, how could that be? And so I'm hopeful that this is a momentary bout of insanity, uh,
Mhm.
and that what we're seeing across many of the states is this moment that will be corrected soon.
I would say, in some of the reporting that I've seen, some of the things we've looked at Diverse and people we've tried to talk to, a lot of higher education leaders, honestly, for the most part, have been pretty silent about this. Um, why do you think that is?
Well, I don't want to try and get into the heads of those who have not spoken out about it. I certainly have not been in that group. And I just opined on, once again, Morgan, and once again, reaching R1, that
Mhm.
that we are not going to lose our soul. We're not going to lose our soul to kind of get to this place where perhaps the rest of higher ed is thinking that you can't get there if you're bringing the kinds of things that Morgan would bring. But we're going to be true to our past. We're going to be true to our history. If you really want to understand American history, it seems to me that the way we are going, HBCUs are going to be one of the few genre of institutions that are not going to be, or should not be, frightened enough where they're going to vacate
Right.
a curriculum that defines the HBCU.
Yeah.
It's just hard for me to even imagine that. And so therefore, if this is not corrected across many of those states, I do think that you'll see perhaps even swelling of more enrollments in HBCUs when students and their families are figuring out that these institutions are truth tellers, and you can go there and you can still get a college education where no matter where you go, your head will not respond like a sponge. That, you know, the minute the pressure is kind of placed upon you to defend what it is you're talking about, you can't do that. And so the minute the pressure is placed on a sponge, if you will, all the water comes out. Well, the type of education you get at Morgan is not one like that. It's one where no matter what platform you're on, you're going to be in a position to defend with facts a position that you take. And that's where higher education in this country has historically been. And unfortunately, I think we're seeing far too many examples of places that don't want it to be like that anymore. And I think that's unfortunate.
Yeah, if this were to come to pass, I guess your next problem is going to be how to increase capacity. You have to build some more dorms, and
that's what we're doing now. As a matter of fact, we have to kind of shut down our application portal. We don't have any more space right now to house students, and so we're building residential halls now as fast as we can in order to accommodate the increased demand for Morgan education.
Yeah. One last question here in regards to the attack on DEI. We talk a lot about what we can do within the academy, but who do you think outside of higher ed needs to speak up and be an ally for opposing this type of legislation?
I'm very encouraged by an effort that is underway now that actually I'm a part of. So member of the Association of Governing Boards, AGB.
Okay.
And AGB just spearheaded just a couple of weeks ago a national initiative called Higher Education as a National Asset. And has formed a commission on that and has anointed 3 outstanding individuals to co-chair that, including someone coming from the private sector. It has corporate representation, it has higher ed representation, it has political representation. And so I think that is a great step forward to basically bring together now all of these leaders across all of these spaces and say, okay, time out. We have to understand that that the higher education system that we built here in America is the envy of the world. And it alone, no, not alone, but it in concert with other institutions have built an economy that is still #1 in the world, that is a place where the overwhelming number of Nobel Prize laureates are birthed, or if you will, or anointed, and has given rise to all of the innovation that is so necessary to have made the nation the most competitive one in the world, and that will keep it there. So I am very encouraged by the potential of this commission on education as a national asset. I think that is a great start, and I anxiously await the outcome of this commission.
No, that's good. And I assume and I hope our editors are aware of this, but I'm definitely going to pass this on. So we may be following back up with you in that regard. But I appreciate the time. As we close here, I got one last Alabama question for you now. So what's the one thing you can't get in Maryland that you miss from Alabama?
Oh man, this is my my late brother's favorite dish is gumbo.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
My oldest brother was known throughout, I don't know, a 15 county area in Alabama as perfecting gumbo. And I tell you, what he put into that, I can't even express.
Yeah, no, I know.
So I go home to our little area there. We go down periodically, and his daughter tries to replicate it, and of course, I can only have those small amount because it is so rich in ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't get that here in Maryland. But you know what? I have learned that outside of Maryland, no matter where I go, I don't order crab cakes.
Yes, that is
so. Yeah, I've been so spoiled here, if you will, that it's like no, I'm not going to be frustrated with a crab cake in any other place. I'll wait until I get back to Maryland. So Maryland, it's a great place to live.
I think people in the DMV quickly learn that. It's not the same. It's not the same. But hey, Dr. Wilson, appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. And again, Diverse wants to congratulate you and the team at Morgan for achieving the DOIT certification and for all the work that you guys do and continue to do. And we wish you best on the trek to Research One. We definitely will be following that.
Thank you very much for reaching out. I read Diverse every single morning. It's an incredible publication, and I followed it actually since Matthews and the partner there,
Bill Cox.
And Cox, Cox and Matthews, since they brought it into existence a few decades ago. And so very, very pleased to see where Diverse is now and the promising future ahead.
Well, to your point there, thank you. 40 years, we're at our 40th anniversary now. So it's definitely been a while.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, thank you, Dr. Wilson.